The first lathe is believed to have been created around 1300 BC in ancient Egypt. These lathes were manned by two workers, one that used a rope to turn the materials and the second to make the cuts. The lathe is a fascinating machine. While woodworking can require several machines to complete a project, the lathe can finish a project on its own. While I don't personally spend as much time with the lathe as some of the more dedicated channels, there are so many things I couldn't do without that spinning machine. Today I'll share with you 10 tips that I use when I need to spin wood. Like my last full-size tip video, I've indexed each of the tips so that you can easily move on if you've already seen the tip. I've also got links you'll find in the description that go along with the video. Let's get rolling.
There is a flame that burns inside myself.
In the past, I've used miter saws to make dowels. Small dowels do really well, but due to heat, larger dowels can be difficult as you're sometimes left with a taper effect. The best way to make larger dowels, you've got to use a lathe. In the past, this has been my workflow. Use a caliper and a chisel until you achieve the right thickness in one spot, then duplicate to the end. To finish, use another chisel to clean up. This is a long process that's far from perfection. Instead, grab an old wrench and modify it. We'll grind away part of the upper jaw and sharpen the lower. Adding the grind to both sides of the head will give us sharper edges that we'll want for lateral cutting. Then we'll cut our stock so that it's slightly larger than the wrench profile. Remove the corners and follow up with our wrench. There's two motions that I use, jabbing forward and side-to-side cutting. The bonus is that the profile on the wrenches is a bit large, which allows us a chance to clean up the newly made dowels with sandpaper. Finding the center of a square block is easy. A couple lines connecting both corners and X marks the spot. If you're looking for the center to a cylinder or a circle, you can either buy or make a center finder. But what if you're looking for the center of an incongruent shape? I have a log here that I'd like to turn on my lathe to round. If I use my center finder, I can try to come at it with different angles to find a general center, but it's still more of an abstract guess. Instead, we'll quickly take a piece of acrylic, find the center by connecting the diagonals. We'll drill the center out and remove the backing. Now, find a thin strip of wood that's the radius of the circle. Drill a hole on one end, and then holes in half-inch increments. Add a bolt and a nut to the center, and we'll quickly draw circles from the inside out. With our acrylic bullseye that we made, we can now place this on the top of incongruent objects to get a closer estimation to where the center is. With the half-inch ring sizes, it makes it a little easier to center the stock. In the past, we've talked about ways to drill the center of a dowel. Back in '94, we used a Forstner bit the size of the dowel we wanted to add a hole, and drilled in a piece of stock. Later, we switched the bit and the chuck to the target size we're looking to add, added our dowel, and drilled our hole. This works for a short piece of stock, but what if we want to add a hole to a much longer dowel? For this, we'll switch to the lathe. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. While lathes are an obvious answer to the problem, it's still very difficult to get the dowel lined up with the chuck so that it spins straight. I've got a dowel that's 3/4 inches in diameter. If I add it to my lathe, crank it down, and turn it on, you can see the blank space as the dowel spins around. This is obviously not centered. Instead, we'll center the dowel in the chuck, move the tool rest so that it's parallel to the dowel, and lock it in place. With a piece of scrap, we'll push on the end of the dowel until we can't see any of the blank space. My dowel is now centered. Obviously, the mass of the length of the dowel is going to matter, but if you can't get your dowel centered, this can help. Now, it's easy to add a hole to the end. A little trick I came up with a few years ago involves using an angle or die grinder in place of lathe chisels. Because grinder media are made out of cheap, disposable materials, you can quickly shape things like steel and rock very inexpensively. In a no-forge challenge a few years ago, I mixed epoxy and lava rocks to create this handle. Due to the softness of the lava rock, I had thought it would have been possible to use lathe tools to whittle it down, but obviously failed. To form it, I used a flat disc in my grinder, which very easily gave me the shape I was looking for. Besides shaping materials that can't be shaped with normal lathe tools, they also make shaping end grain far easier. If you're struggling with catches with end grain, a flat disc can more effectively do the work. I was easily able to clean it up, revealing a magnificent chatoyance. There are a few things you need to remember if you're going to attempt this. Always wear safety equipment like face shields as well as breathing filters. Clean up sawdust so that any sparks you create won't start a fire. Also take your time and don't force anything. Treat things like you're sanding instead of cutting. Use common sense. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. The Barley twist is a 17th century creation, used in making legs for furniture as well as candlestick holders. As complicated as the design looks, I'm going to show you how you can easily make your own with a lathe. We'll start off by bringing our stock to round. If you're looking for a hollow twist, bore out the center with the Forstner bit. We'll section the stock off, with equal parts measurements. I'm going to go with a 1/2 inch, so I'll make 1/2 inch marks. I'll take a string and wrap it around the stock, marking where the end meets. Folding it in half, I can find the center, and folding it again, which will give me 4 equal parts that I'll mark. I'll transfer the marks of the stock on both edges by finding a center point, winding and then marking at each point I made earlier. We'll use a straight edge to connect the points, and you'll just need to connect the diagonals. Use a saw to cut on the lines to the depth you're looking for, and use a chisel or a Dremel to hog the rest out. Now all that's left is sanding. I've got an awl that I made using this method by adding a center to the hollow. You can find that link in the description below. The beauty of lathes is that you can take any piece of wood you find and start working with it. There's no milling necessary, and you don't have to worry about your stock being square and dimensioned correctly. It can be as simple as tapping a spur into a piece of firewood and clamping a live center to the other end. If you're planning on grabbing a piece of scrap and putting it in, you're good to go. But if you're grabbing split logs from a firewood pile, there are 2 things that you'll need to be concerned about. First, removing the bark can save you from getting bark faced. And second, grab a good moisture meter. If your stock is too wet, you'll end up with a lot of movement and distortion later on. So you really want to make sure that you use something that's low in moisture. While any split log can be chucked up on the lathe, the best practice is to clean the log up before starting by removing the bark and, if you can, the corners. The bandsaw is a perfect way to do this as there's a lot of freedom with movement. Bandsaws are only safe when we're placing a flat surface against a tabletop. Any curved surface, as seen in number 15, can be grabbed and pulled out of your hands, damaging your blade. To get around this, we need to create 2 points of contact, which will help to prevent this destructive force. A few years ago, I created a bandsaw jig that has a cutout in the center of the jig, allowing the blade to be inserted into the bed. Once the blade is inserted, we'll line up what we'll want to cut off and lock the jig into the miter slot. With a setup like this, I can cut corners off as well as shape stock before I move it to the lathe. Sharpening lathe tools isn't my most favorite thing to do in the shop, and this jig helps by eliminating rough starts. My older bandsaw jig used a very shallow end for the cut, but I've updated it to be equal lengths away from the blade. I've also written plans and made a step-by-step video showing how to build this. All the plans to make this are free. You can get links to them in the description below. Having a smooth tool rest for your lathe tools to slide on as you work is crucial. This Harbor Freight tool rest has been dinged and bumped so many times that when I go to use it, the indentations causes my tools to catch. I've seen people talk about using a file to clean up the tool rest, but I have some very deep dents that would take a flap disc to clean up. It's just not a good long-term solution. You can switch to a stainless steel tool rest, but one good thing that cast iron tool rests do is to prevent vibrations. So I chose to take a little bit of both worlds to create a better tool rest. I used stainless steel 1/4 inch angle and rounded the corner. This protects my tools and keeps them from also getting dinged. Stainless steel is hard stuff. I could attach this with a few screws, but chose to use epoxy made from metal. After scuffing both surfaces and using a vinegar mix we talked about in bite size 119, I attached it and gave it some time to cure. I used wax on the surface so that my tools slide easily as I use them. If you want to grab this stainless steel angle, I have a link in the description below. Lathes are built to spin stock around at very high speeds between 2 points of contact. While a piece of stock can spin freely at the headstock without being supported on the back end, you're better off if you can maintain that second point of contact. Sometimes it's necessary to work on the end of the stock, which means the only support you're giving it is in the front. Unfortunately, bad things can happen with only one support. Enter the steady rest. A steady rest is a simple fixture that creates a second point of contact that helps enforce stability. While there are many ways to make steady rests, I created my own out of 3 roller blades and a simple frame I made on the table saw. If you like knobs like I do, it can be made to accept knobs to hold the upper and lower arms in place. If you want a quick fixture, you can use a set of F-clamps to hold it together. While a lot of these rollerblade style fixtures are limited to larger projects due to the angle of the wheels, mine allows you to move your wheels so that you can get much thinner stock in the center. If you're interested in seeing this build along with some free plans, I have a link in the description. Biggest beginner tip for lathes is to buy a chuck at the same time you buy a lathe. When I purchased my $200 Harbor Freight lathe 7 years ago, these were the only tools that came with the spindle. It was limited until I got this chuck. Now this machine is a powerhouse, and I have yet to find a reason to replace it. I've used it to grind bolts into hammers, round chisels, add bevels to lava rock handles. Most of all these projects, including the woodworking ones, could not be done with the tools that originally came with it. There are different types of jaws you can add to the surface of the chuck to allow it to grip different shapes, but even these jigs are rarely ever used on my machine. Instead, being able to grab a piece of stock and use a tail as a balance has been my most used method. The jaws on my chuck have a square center grip that allows me an inch-wide tongue, so I can cut my stock down and lock it in place. Not only can you grab stock, but you can easily add spur centers as well as screw chucks, and I've even had a lot of success with just tightening down on a bolt. I have a link to the Nova chuck that I bought in the description, but anything is better than the bare spindle that most lathes come with. If you use dowels in your work, it's hard to make heads or tails of previously cut wooden cylinders. I've even used a caliper to try to find a size I'm looking for, but then you struggle struggle with large, precise numbers due to relative humidity. This isn't limited to just dowels. It also applies to the lathe when trying to measure cuts that were made. Instead, we're going to make a dowel and lathe measuring board. This will fit over a dowel easily and give us a quick reading. Of course, this idea isn't a new idea. We're basically just making a series of holes cut in a piece of stock. But most ideas I've seen to split these really hampers the radius measurements due to the curve of the blade. Instead, we'll take two thin strips and use a little super glue to hold them together on both ends. We'll use an awl to mark along the center and then drill our holes out. When we're done, we'll cut both ends off, which will give us a perfect radius to check our dowels. With both pieces finished, I store one half next to my lathe and the other next to my dowels. Thank you so much for watching. It means so much to me that you're here. What tip did you see that you might try in your shop? As always, I like to thank my patrons that keep the machines rolling. If you'd like to be a patron, I have a link in the description. Thank you, Michelle B., Keith Current, William L McNally, Rich Lightfoot, Tutor the Barbarian, Mike Lornitis, Les N, Gary G, Aubrey G, Nukebert, Sam W, Aaron Knows DIY, and Doug F. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and ring that bell. And I thank you so much for being a part of my shop. Please leave a comment below, come find me on Instagram at MakeThingsWithRob, and remember to keep making things.
Like me, there is a flame that burns inside myself.